When he finished reading the letter, the CEO didn't move. Not for seconds, not for minutes. The vast, silent office seemed to hold its breath. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny world he'd never noticed before. The letter lay flat on his mahogany desk, a simple piece of paper that had just dismantled his entire reality. His gaze was fixed on the city below, a sprawling metropolis of lives he had impacted but never truly considered. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he reached for the stack of termination papers. They were crisp, official, and cold. His fingers trembled slightly as he fanned them out. He scanned the names, one by one. Smith, Johnson. They weren't just names on a list. They were faces, lives, families. He saw people he had stopped seeing as human, reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet, liabilities on a balance sheet. These were the people he was about to discard, the necessary casualties of a corporate restructuring he had championed with detached efficiency. His mind flashed back, years ago, to a cramped, dusty mailroom. He was young, ambitious, and drowning in a sea of paperwork. The sheer volume felt insurmountable, a storm he couldn't weather. He remembered complaining, whining to the old mail clerk, Hale, about how impossible it all was. Hale, with his kind eyes and gentle smile, had simply patted a stack of envelopes and said, "Even storms end, one paper at a time." That voice, a memory buried under years of ambition and ruthless decision-making, echoed in the silence of his office. It was so clear, so present, it was as if Hale was standing right there beside him. Hale, who had never once judged his youthful arrogance. Hale, who had always had a steady word of encouragement. Hale, who had seen the potential in a frustrated young man and nurtured it with simple, profound wisdom. His vision began to steam up, the sharp lines of the cityscape blurring into a watercolor wash. A single tear escaped, tracing a hot path down his cheek before falling onto the cold, polished surface of his desk. It landed with a soft, almost imperceptible splash, a tiny ripple in the vast ocean of his regret. In that single, heart-shattering moment, the truth crashed down on him with the force of a tidal wave. He had built an empire, reached the pinnacle of success, and commanded the respect and fear of thousands. Yet he had never once truly seen the man who saw him more clearly than anyone else ever did. He had never seen Hale as anything more than the old guy who sorted the mail. He had never appreciated the quiet mentorship, the unwavering belief, the simple humanity that had been a foundation for his own rise. He thought of the funeral notice tucked inside Hale's letter. He had missed it. He was too busy, too important. The irony was a bitter pill. The man who had taught him to handle things one paper at a time had left him one final, life-altering letter, and he was gone. A deep, gut-wrenching sob escaped him, a sound he hadn't made since he was a child. The carefully constructed fortress around his heart crumbled, leaving him exposed and raw. And now it was too late. It was too late to say thank you. Too late to apologize for his blindness, for his ingratitude. Too late to tell Hale that his simple words had been a guiding star, even when he had forgotten to look up at the sky. But as he sat there, surrounded by the symbols of his success that now felt like a prison, another thought began to form, a fragile seedling of hope in the barren landscape of his regret. It was too late to thank Hale in person, but it wasn't too late to change. He looked back at the firing papers, the names no longer just ink on a page, they were stories. They were futures. He picked up his pen, the one he had used to sign deals worth millions, and with a steady hand, he drew a thick, decisive line through every single name. He then grabbed the intercom, his voice hoarse but firm. "Cancel my afternoon, and get me the entire human resources file on every employee listed for termination. I want to see everything. Their histories, their reviews, their families, everything." He put the receiver down and looked at Hale's letter one last time. He folded it carefully and placed it in his breast pocket right over his heart. From that day on, he vowed to see people, not as assets or liabilities, but as human beings. He would lead not with spreadsheets, but with empathy. He would build a company where no one was invisible, where every contribution was valued. It was the least he could do. It was the only way to honor the man who had seen him when he could uneven see himself. The storm in his heart was just beginning to calm. and he knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his soul, that he would face it and rebuild everything one person at a time. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking and subscribing for more content that makes you think and feel. We'll see you in the next one.